how am I embracing and taking care of the water that I have access to? Because through the film, you'll see how people have risked their lives in so many ways.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Hola, hola. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Café con Pam, where we share our stories over cafecito. Yo soy Pam y estamos aquí compartiendo una historia bien importante. El día de hoy platicamos con María José Majo Calderón, who's an award-winning documentary producer and editor from Chile, now based in Oakland. She's created short and feature-length films for platforms including PBS, Netflix, Fusion, Univision, ESPN, and Latino Public Broadcasting. Her work highlights themes of human rights, environmental justice, and social equity. Majo's most recent project, Water for Life, premiered at the Mill Valley Film Festival in 2023. It earned an Audience Favorite Award and later winning Best Feature at the 2024 Isla Verde International Environmental Film Festival. The film is set to air on PBS this year, in a few days actually, and through storytelling, Majo aims to spark meaningful change and amplify voices often left out of the narrative. Listeners, watchers, YouTubers, no sé cómo decirte todavía. Este documental es bien importante. I got the opportunity to watch it ahead of time, and I was touched in so many ways. It made me feel, it made me cry, it made me just reflect so much about the resources that we currently have access to, especially as someone living in the US, and taking them for granted. And also, it was for me, which we talk about in the interview, it was an invitation to explore what am I going to do to leave the world a better place, and not just through the conversations that we're having here on the show, but also through my actions. How am I embracing and taking care of the water that I have access to? Because through the film, you'll see how people have risked their lives in so many ways, especially these indigenous leaders that are the three stories that Water for Life, the film, highlights. Y bueno, sin más, here's my conversation with Majo Calderón. Majo, bienvenida a Café con Pam. ¿Cómo estás?
Muchas gracias por invitarme.
Sí, gracias por estar aquí. Me encantó ver tu documental que acabas de hacer. Tienes obviamente una trayectoria like very long. Se me olvidó switch to English. Super long of filmmaking and documentary making. Este documental Water for Life. It was 10 years, ¿cierto?
Well, I'm the producer and editor of Water for Life. Will Parinello, the director, started this project 12 years ago.
12.
Yes, over a decade. I joined in 2019, still half a decade.
Yeah. And for you, what was that drew you into the stories of all of these indigenous leaders fighting for water and this really powerful thing that keeps us alive? What drew you in?
Well, I'm a filmmaker, and at the time I was living in Chile. I'm originally from Chile. So I was living there, I was working, and I heard of this North American filmmaker that needed a field producer for a film. So I started working as a field producer, doing research, getting access. He wanted to speak to this Mapuche leader who had been fighting against hydroelectric uh, projects, corporations, and also against the government. It's a long story.
Watch the film.
But also it's a long story. It's like the fight of all indigenous communities in Latin America that were basically their land was stolen, and like they're still in the process of recovering or reclaiming what's theirs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Alberto had been very active, but at the time I started working, he was imprisoned, and he was basically framed. He was accused of robbing a bank. There was like zero. I mean, the only ¿cómo se diría en español? La única pista the police
The only
got,
clue?
the only clue was an anonymous phone call.
Oh my gosh.
He was in prison for a year and a half without charges. There's no proof besides that phone call. And I'm so glad that we got involved because I think, in big part, if he weren't paying attention and we had this international crew following his story, he could still be in prison because they were asking for a 48-year sentence. Yes.
Wow.
So yeah, I got involved as a field producer, and little by little, I started doing more and more. And then I moved to the U.S. in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, and I started getting more involved in the project as one of the only. I mean, not of the, one of the few, but I would say the only in the post production crew that spoke Spanish, and the whole film happens in Latin America. So
No.
I became an invaluable asset, and it's perfect because this is right around like my alley: environmental justice, human rights, and telling the stories that, even though they're like El Salvador, Honduras, and Chile, they're so universal. It's a story that repeats itself not just in Latin America, also in Asia, in Africa. So it's been a pleasure. It's been hard. I mean, people haven't seen the film yet. It's these are hard stories, but what makes this film good, I would say, is that it gives you hope at the end.
Mm,
These are people that organize themselves for a cause, and they fought in a peaceful way, which is also something that it's important for me.
mhm,
They used ideas and community organizing, grassroots organizing, and they won, which is amazing. There were some sacrifices. I mean, I won't give any spoilers, but I mean, it's not really a spoiler. But yeah, these activists fought, and they were sent to jail. They were receiving death threats. One of them, one of the stories, is Berta Cáceres. Her story is the most well known. She was assassinated in 2016, and I wasn't there at the moment. I wasn't working on the project, but Will Parinello and the the other members of the crew, the DP, director of photography, they were there months before her assassination.
wow.
They captured what she was going through, which is not easy. I mean, yeah, no, it's really scary to be in the few.
Mhm, and the risks that all of these people have taken and continue to take with their risking their lives, risking their family, risking their freedom. It's a lot. And how was it for you to get involved with the project and manage the emotional turmoil that I'm sure witnessing it firsthand and then in the post-production process? How
Mhm.
did you manage to also stay grounded?
Well, I think I might need some therapy now that I'm coming to the end. No, it's been really intense, emotional for me to see and witness these stories. I mean, and I didn't spend time in El Salvador and Honduras. But I was part of the filming in Chile, and I got to spend time with the family of Alberto and his kids, and it's heartbreaking because um, Alberto not only was in prison, but he was constantly harassed. There's a lot of discrimination. So I mean, I wasn't in danger at any time doing this, but I would say the hardest part was editing because it took me almost 3 years to edit this film.
Wow.
I didn't do it alone. It was a collaboration, but it was mainly me during the pandemic at home watching 12 years,
Oh my gosh.
country by country, and deciding, do I want to like weave in this story? So at the end, we decided to tell them separately because this is for an American audience, and sometimes people have a hard time.
Deciphering the difference, yeah.
El Salvador, Honduras, or Chile, like, so we have a map and we tell people, okay, this is one country, this is another country, but it's the same problem.
Mm,
There is a pattern for sure. So the hardest thing for me, I mean, I've always worked since the beginning, like for 20 years, I've worked in human rights stories, a lot of films about Chile, So I'm very familiar with that story and still emotional. But it was really hard to see all the images that came from El Salvador and Honduras. Because I've heard of the we because for each story we give some context and historical background, and I knew about the Civil War. I knew that it was like a bloody, terrible. I mean, it still affects people in Salvador and Honduras. So much impunity. I mean, Latin America is the country. I mean, the continent where most people are killed, environmental activists, each year.
Wow.
And there's a history of that. And just seeing the images of El Salvador, I had to like. There's one scene, it's not too long, but of the Civil War, and just all the footage that I got to see, it was really troubling. And can you imagine? I'm just seeing this, but
Right.
there's yeah, there's a lot of healing that needs to happen in this continent, because I mean all the problems can be traced back to uh, things that happened before. So yeah, it was intense, but I tried to do activities to like. I love dancing, and I try to do as often as I can just to
Mm.
release and forget. Like yoga doesn't work for me
Mm-hmm.
because I keep thinking.
Yeah, you're still in your head.
I can forget about it because it's hard. Like even last night we had a screening in Oakland, and I watched the film thousands of times just by editing it, and then a year and a half on the road going to festivals, and I sit and I watch the film every time because I feel bad like leaving the room.
Claro.
All these people came to watch the film, and the producer leaves, and every time I watch it I get so emotional because it's still powerful for me even after all this time, because well, people have to see the film, but these are like amazing people. They're not, I mean, they're exceptional, but they're not different than many others. There's so many people like them that
Mm,
with so little, they're like fighting for what's just, for what they deserve. And like in this society nowadays, it's kind of telling us, forget, just look at your phone and think about yourself and the way you look, and like be self-absorbed. And these are
right.
people that are going against that, not just for them and their immediate community, but for everybody. I mean, rivers, the health of rivers and water is for everyone, not just for a handful of people. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really touching, and yeah, definitely I had to when I watched it. I watched it later in the evening, and then I'm glad it wasn't super late because I was like, I need to watch some comedy after this because it does touch you in so many ways, and it's also really inspiring to see. I grew up in Mexico City, and so there's also you see often people that don't have a lot of resources who are the fighters, like don't take the very little that we already were left with. You still like, and so that strength and the resilience that we got to witness through the film was really powerful.
Hmm.
And another thing that I found out that I didn't know is that Chile is the only country whose waterways are traded in the stock exchange.
Yeah, well, that's something that we also tell in the film, a little bit of history, how we came to this. So in 1973, there was a dictatorship, coup d'etat in Chile. And among the many things that did very quickly, um, was to change the constitution. I mean, it took some years. I'm not going to go into details, but they changed the constitution to make water private, as well as education, healthcare, social security.
I feel like we're getting a little glimpse of that here.
Well, in a way, if people want to find out more, Chile was an experiment
Mm,
of, really. it was an experiment, and people can do more research. But it was an experiment of what it's being done in other places now, which is to um, privatize all the resources and have it controlled by private interest. So the government doesn't have much power. So water became private, and that means not only that we pay one of the highest prices for water, for drinkable water in Chile, but also, let's say you have land, and your land has a river or a creek that goes by, you are not allowed to use that water unless you pay for the water rights. And they're really expensive.
Wow.
So that means that only people that with a lot of resources can buy those water rights. And it's never indigenous communities.
Of course.
So in the film, Alberto Curamil says, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this is our land. We have this river, but I can go to jail if I for
Yeah.
using this water to water my crops. Meanwhile, you have a super wealthy German company across the river, and they have unlimited resources, and they just bought all the water rights, and they can do whatever they can water their monoculture. Let's say it can be for agriculture, or many times it's for timber, which
Mm,
doesn't really help the community because all this monoculture like pine or eucalyptus, they're drying the land. There's a severe drought, people don't have water, but at the same time you have to buy water, and they don't even hire people, because if you have a forest, the trees are growing on their own. You hire
totally.
what, 4 people every couple of years to just like clear the forest, but the rest of the time is they're just drinking up all the water.
Wow.
So there's been a movement in Chile to try to change that, and at some point in the film we were telling that story because in 2019 there was an uprising in Chile, and one of the main things that people wanted to change was that the water has to be a human right. To have access to water is a human right, not a commodity. And unfortunately that didn't go
Mm,
very well. There was a we tried to change the constitution, we voted, but then the majority of people said, no, we don't want to new constitution. We want to keep the one that was written during the dictatorship. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, things haven't changed in Chile, and it's really sad.
it is. It is. And when you mentioned it was an experiment, I think of what that experiment brought up, how it's now being applied into other places.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of literature about it, and uh, I've been saying it for many years because I mean, I was a kid when this happened in Chile, and there's a lot of people that think that this was positive, that there was a dictatorship.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a small segment in Chile that think um, that yeah, that we needed, the country was polarized, blah blah blah, but that doesn't mean that then you have to go privatize all the resources. So it doesn't make any sense. But what is sad is that we also see, which this is not part of the film, but like privatization of like the Department of Education,
Mhm.
that we are now seeing like 50 years later what that did to the country. um, So now you basically have to pay for everything in Chile. You have to pay for school. You have to pay for yeah. Let's not go into that. That's one of the reasons we moved. We moved to the U.S. with my family. I mean, I have dual citizenship, but it was getting really really hard to stay there, especially during the pandemic. And if we had family here, we said, let's go try it over there. We'll see, maybe now we're gonna go back.
Oh, is there a choice? Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel you, I feel you. So, in the film, you follow 3 stories, Chile, El Salvador, y Honduras. Another fact that I was like, whoa, is that 90% of the water is contaminated in El Salvador, which means that the water that's left, if it's being taken from the people, then what are they left with? So wild.
Exactly. That's why the movement against mining was so strong in El Salvador. Because a lot of people think of El Salvador, if you've never been there, you think, oh, it's in Central America. They have I don't know, it's in the jungle. They have tons of water, and no, they have it's a little different to other countries. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they've also experienced drought. There's a lot of deforestation. Um, and yeah, so if they only have 10% of the water, it's really important for them, for their future, to keep it clean so that they can consume it, humans can consume it.
Right.
um, so yeah, the El Salvador passed a law, and they banned basically all mining, all types of mining.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're trying to reverse that. So the anti-mining movement, they're organizing again, but it's hard times there if you want to speak against um, power. So yeah, our protagonist in El Salvador is having a screening next week, and we're a little nervous, I have to say. I mean, he wants to do it, but we are a little nervous because he's a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a political figure or an activist. He's a farmer, and he just wants to keep doing that. And he wants his children to be able to keep living from the land. And if there's no water, then they have to go somewhere else. And then a lot of people migrate north and they try to come here, but that's not an option anymore. So it's really important to countries to really focus on what they need to sustain their population,
Yeah.
because yeah, if you don't have access to all the minimal things that sustain your life, yeah, you're gonna have to migrate somewhere else. But
Mm-hmm.
if countries don't want that, it's better to be strategic, and a lot of times governments don't put their
People
people
first, yeah.
first. So I'm really hoping that I mean, it's not looking great. I think they're going to start they're already doing explorations, like different companies, and I don't know what's going to happen, but it's really sad because it was unprecedented, and it was like, wow, this small country in Latin America is showing the rest of the world that it's more important to have clean water than mining. Then you have to find another way to bring in jobs or like develop the economy. But uh, instead, they're going the opposite direction.
Oh. And many times is how it's framed, because probably it's framed around it will bring the economy up because whatever companies will bring in more money into the country. But then who's affected?
Exactly. And it's always poor people that are
Correct.
affected, and farmers and people that live by the river. I mean, a lot of people do their laundry in the river. They get their drinkable water from the river. What's going to happen then?
Totally. Oh, yeah, it was when Francisco actually said it, that he found that the water that a family would use in 30 years, a mine was using in 1 hour. That was wild to me.
Right.
And I don't know if that's something presented to people, like when going back to how things are framed, if we are, and I think this is an invitation for the listeners, people watching, to bring in their critical thinking and question, okay, if you're going to try to shift what we have agreed on, who's it going to be affected? How is that going to shift the current environment?
Hmm.
Who's going to be benefiting as well? And so that could give us a lot of answers that may not be in the initial introduction
Right.
to it.
Right, and I mean, there's going to be at some point devastation, and then once all the minerals are gone, the company's going to leave.
Yes.
yeah, it's very worrisome. But yeah, I don't know. So in El Salvador, the anti-mining movement, it's made out of different groups. There's a lot of members of the church that were supporting this group, and there's also the Comité Ambiental de Cabañas, and one of their members, I mean, two of their members, Francisco and blanking out his name, but these are people that have won like awards, environmental awards. Francisco, Berta, and Alberto are main characters. They all won the Goldman Environmental Prize in different years. Um, and I don't know how they came up with that exact number. Um, but what they're trying is to explain a family, like, see, like you have so many I mean, access to water is so hard. Like you have to go, because they don't even have, in many places they don't even like have water, running water at home. They have to walk somewhere to a well and get
Mm-hmm.
water. Like you're doing all these sacrifices, not because there's no water, because there's not a lot of drinkable water, and then this
Mm.
company is going to come in and just like pump it and take it. Doesn't make any sense. And then, I mean, who's responsible is like local governments. A lot of times they get paid off by
Mm-hmm.
these companies. Um, but yeah, we're expectantes, like looking at what's going to happen in El Salvador next. I know that a lot of environmental activists have been arrested last year, and so there's a lot of fear.
Yeah,
So we're hoping that this film, not that it is gonna air here in the U.S., maybe it'll make some impact. We'll see, positive impact. Uh, we'll see. We'll do what we can.
for sure. What's your invitation to the people who watch the film? What are the next steps to do? They could do.
Well, we've been traveling with this film for a year and a half now. This is like the end of a cycle, and it's gonna premiere on PBS on Monday, April 21st at 10 p.m. I mean, people have to check the local schedules,
Mm-hmm.
but it's, yeah, on Earth Day. It'll be streaming for 90 days free, so people can catch it. If they can watch it on that same day, they can find different days. And then in our website and social media, we have links to, I mean, if you want to learn about each country, um, specifically, we have a lot of information in our website. If people want to support either one of these organizations, they're welcome to do it. Our work is to present all this information, and then if
Mm-hmm.
people want to learn more, um, they're welcome to connect with these organizations. But what we'll do is we have an educational distributor. So we already started showing the film in universities, hopefully some high schools, and have meaningful conversations with the students. And I think that's the best way.
Create awareness.
Yeah. And just meeting with people in person and having these conversations, because sometimes just looking at the film on your own can be a little um, overwhelming. But when you're with other people, it sparks like really important conversations about what it's really important to fight for. I mean, there's many things that need to be fixed in our world right now, but there's some that are very basic.
Yes. Like water.
We are water. We need water to live, and it's, yes, material things are important, but without the basics, there's just no way that as a species we're gonna continue to be on this beautiful planet that we are not taking very well care of.
Totally. Totally. Ooh. So, Majo, having worked on this film, how did it shift your perspective now as once you completed it? You've been on tour, you've been talking about it. How do you see your work evolving from having worked on this film?
Well, it's been an amazing opportunity. I've worked in smaller projects up to this time. I think now I got to be involved in a very important uh, project in many different ways. So not just doing my work and then leave. I've been
Mm,
involved in filming, getting access to the characters, maintain the communication with them, because it's also that is also very important for me. The way that I like it, the way I see filmmaking and I approach my work. Um, I like. I don't like feeling that I'm coming to a community, taking a story, and then leaving. And
mm,
I like getting to know them, getting their trust, and living up to the expectations that they have. So I'm really happy that all of them, all of our characters, their families like the film. They have been actively showing it in their communities. So that to me is really, really rewarding. Uh, Also, I learned a lot about producing. I produce smaller pieces. Documentary filmmaker, you work with very small crews. Many times I'm filming, asking the questions, doing sound editing. But here we had a real crew, and that was really nice working with other people. Um, for I mean, up till now, like the film, we're still creating more content. We have beautiful people that joined the project, like Diego Luna became the narrator.
mhm.
um, Lila Downs sings the credit song with a singer. We're going to release a music video of both of them singing. um, so it's opened up like many other, I'm not going to say opportunities, but I met amazing people. I've traveled, I've gone to festivals, and I've more than ever, I feel like I'm doing what I love, and this is what I'm supposed to do. It's not easy being a documentary filmmaker. There's a lot of uncertainty. You never know where you're going to get funding, but
I feel like it's a different way of activism.
yeah, I feel like it's my contribution to society. So I think before, at some point, I was like, I don't know, maybe I should do something else. But seeing that people like the film, and I've received, like, I don't know, comments about editing. This is my first feature film that I edit by myself. I've done shorter films, and a lot of production, but editing a film like this was a challenge, but knowing that it was successful, it gives me a boost. Like, maybe, okay, I'm in the right path. I should continue to do this.
Yes. Well, it's amazing. I think your work is incredible. Tell us all the places where we can find the film. You already told us it's premiering on PBS on the 21st. So this episode is going to release before that.
Yeah.
And any other links you may want to share so people can learn more.
Yes. So we have our website is waterforlife.film. We also have our social media. Instagram is Water for Life plus the PBS. It's on PBS on their website. There's a lot of information and resources, links, and yeah, if people also have questions, they can send us a message to our Instagram. We're regularly checking it. And if people want to have screenings, they can also send us a message through our website or our Instagram.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Majo, for being a part of this awesome film. I think it's going to change so many lives and perspectives and open people's eyes to things that we may not have had awareness. Because, especially the audience, I can speak for the audience in the US because I live here. We sometimes, I think, we take water for granted in so many ways. Earlier, I mentioned I grew up in Mexico City, and o sea, allá, not every day, or maybe now, but I remember when I was little, it was like 4 o'clock and they would cut out the water. So we have tinacos. So we have, no sé cómo se dice en inglés, like water
Tanks.
containers, tanks at the top of the house.
Hmm.
And so my grandma would often, like, at noon, be like, "Don't forget to, like, bring water up so we have enough water for the rest of the evening." And it was just something that you were kind of accustomed to and understand that you'd have water after 5. And so I often think about that, and watching the film, the documentary reminded me of that, to not take our resources for granted, and to also be appreciative of how generous the earth is with us.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, here, especially if you live in urban areas, you
Mhm.
don't see the rivers. You don't see where the water's coming from. In Chile, we had a similar issue. Actually, we had no water where I live, and that's one of the reasons also we thought about migrating, because our land, the creek dried up because we have neighbors that like having using the water for their swimming pools.
Oh,
Also, there's a golf course up.
they need to water the lawn.
Right, that's really important. So that left us and many people without water. So the only way we could have, like, not just drinkable water, but water for your daily usage, we had to buy water. So we had a truck come in like every 2 weeks,
Wow.
and and that's how people live in many areas. I mean, even in parts of Chile where there's plenty of water and you're by the mountains and you see the snow, you see the river, but because of water being private, you are not allowed to take that water. So you still have to buy water.
Wow.
Uh, so yeah, not just water. There's many things that I think up to now people have been taking for granted here in the U.S.
Mhm.
And now that things are being shaken up a little bit, I think it's time to realize that we're all the same. We're all part of the same boat, same world, same continent, facing same issues. Just up till now, because this is a richer country, wealthier country, we were able to have more resources, but we have to be humble. Things can always change, and it's better to take care, not take for granted,
Mhm.
or support communities here in California that are fighting for access for water, or they're trying to reclaim native territories. So there's stories like that everywhere, and that's what we're hoping, that the film will make them question, like, oh, maybe this is also happening where I live. How can I support grassroots organizations around my community or my state, to make life better for all and to protect this earth, this precious earth that deserves that we take better care of her, for
I
sure.
know. I agree. I agree. Well, Majo, thank you so much. Thank you for coming to Café con Pam and sharing all
Thank
the
you.
things. Salud.
Estoy drinking my cafecito.
Yo
Salud.
también, ya se me acabó. Pero bueno, thank you, muchas gracias. Y como dicen, si nada es eterno, entonces, pues no aprovechar, sino como apreciar.
Apreciar. Yes. Appreciate. Be thankful. Grateful.
Ujú.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun talking to you.
Gracias. Bueno, listeners, thank you so much. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Espero que te haya gustado la entrevista. Por favor, si tienes PBS, creo que todo el mundo tiene acceso a PBS. Tune in on April 21st, 2025 and watch the film. It's going to be at no cost to you, and maybe even have a conversation with your loved ones. This is one of those films that will leave you thinking, and like Michael shared in the interview, it's not one to watch by yourself. It's one to discuss after, and because there's a lot of not explicit but implicit calls to action. And so I'm curious, if you enjoy the conversation, drop it in the comments, share it with someone you love. And if you watch it, come back and leave us a note and tell us how you were moved, because oh, there's so many things. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's important. Bueno, sigue brillando como siempre. y nos vemos en nuestro próximo cafecito.
Sabrosura pa' ti que